Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flix Show. My name is Chris Wong. This is episode 428 of the Ping Pong Flix Show. Today is all about the Justice League Snyder Cut. And you're like, again, Chris? Again with the whole Snyder Cut? I mean, guys, seriously. There's very little DCEU news right now, or DC news right now, and it seems like every time the topic of DC or DCEU comes up, the Snyder Cut comes up, because that is such a big topic. And I hope Warner Brothers realizes this, that the Snyder Cut of Justice League is just as important as the rest of the films that are coming out. I mean, it is it turned from myth to existence, and now possibly even complete. I know Zack Snyder says it's done, it exists. There's so many facets of this that makes it so interesting on all levels, and it is incredibly intriguing to everyone out there. Everybody wants to know, even the haters wants to know, and a lot of people are finally turning around. I mean, there's people that are already turned around, but they're really speaking out now, and some of those people are from DC Movie News Live. This is coming from Reyes Flores. I hope I said your name correctly, but thank you so much for these clips. Check it out. It is Mike Kalinowski talking to Roxy Strier on Popcorn Talk, and they're talking about the Snyder Cut.
Snyder.
Okay, I want to go to our producer Ryan, because prior to the show I was talking to Ryan, and Ryan feels like the Snyder Cut is closer than ever to being released. Ryan, talk to me about the Snyder Cut.
I totally believe this. I think that this movie has such a high chance of being released, especially with HBO Max. I mean, what better way to get people to subscribe to your new service than like, hey, we're going to release, it's probably not going to be called the Snyder Cut, but a director's cut of Justice League. That would flock DC fans there.
And this is done.
He said he completed his work on the Snyder Cut score.
And you can't score a film unless you see a film to score.
Well,
Now, Roxy Strier seems to still be on a little bit of the fence, but the producer in the background really believes that it's coming out. Mike Kalinowski really believes it's coming out. He even makes a good point. There's a film score. The score is complete. How do you score a movie that doesn't exist, right? And I get, yeah, basically you got to use a little bit of common sense in terms of thinking about how and why the Snyder Cut exists. It has to exist. There's no and I can't believe we're still talking about this. It's been confirmed that it exists already. You know, it's Zack Snyder himself said he has a cut. I can't believe we're still talking about this, but yet, you know, there's people who are still on the fence. They'll probably still be on the fence until they actually see the movie. You know, they won't believe a word until it's right in their face, and maybe even then they still won't believe it. I don't know, but it is compelling to hear that they also believe, DC Movie News Live and Popcorn Talk, that they also believe that it should also be on HBO Max. That is money on the table. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't HBO Max use this opportunity to elevate their platform? They've got 10,000 hours of content. Why not get 3.5 of those hours for the Snyder Cut of Justice League? I don't know. Why not indeed, right? And then, you know, just to make it a point, I think Dave Dodgers makes something really cool here, and I want to thank him for this. He put out this little chart, says, proof the Snyder Cut exists, period, for idiots, release the Snyder Cut. And it goes into a timeline of principal photography, post-production, and whatever the hell Joss did. And he puts it on the bottom. Do you honestly believe that after 8 months of filming and the 7 months of completed post-production work, Zack didn't have his film close to completion? Please use common sense. Now, I want you to check these tweets out. That Jeffrey Robertson, thank you very much for going out and actually asking these two people, Hirota and Desjardins, two VFX artists, which I believe Grace Randolph had talked to them before, to comment about how much is it completed? How much was Zack Snyder's cut completed to their knowledge when they worked on the project? John Desjardins actually said this: many VFX shots are complete. Some percentage were various stages of completion, from early post-viz to almost done, but not quite. He also says, keep the faith. B. Hirota also says, I concur. So, essentially what they're trying to say here, what I believe, is that it's been mostly complete by the time Zack Snyder left in May. It's been mostly complete. And possibly were working on it even after Zack Snyder left, before Joss Whedon came in and changed everything, right? So, does that mean there's not that much more for Zack Snyder to fully complete himself? I wonder. Well, that is interesting indeed, and we'll get more into this chart later, as I think this is very important, and just in terms of common sense, like he said, there's been a lot done. 8 months of filming and 7 months of completed post-production before Whedon even came on board, right? So there must have been a hefty amount that has been completed at Warner Brothers. But the biggest, possibly the gigantic, biggest thing that has happened today is Jason Momoa. Once again, now this is not some, maybe it's a Snyder Cut or not. He is back with that MTV Joshua Horowitz talking about the Snyder Cut once again. And it's a great interview when they talk a little bit about Zoe Kravitz, about Aquaman, about his Mananalu project and things like that. But this is the snippet about the Snyder Cut.
It seems to me, judging from our past conversations and others you've had, you're always going to be indebted to Zack. Zack Snyder's your
totally,
guy.
man.
He changed your life.
Totally.
So is that partially why when we spoke about a year ago and I brought up the Snyder Cut, you're like, yeah, I need to see that?
Yeah, absolutely. But I have seen it, so.
I've seen
the Snyder Cut, so.
So what does that mean? Because the effects aren't done. Like you've seen his assemblage of footage and alternate takes, etc.
Oh, do you think Zack couldn't finish it? You don't think he?
I don't know. You tell me. He's finished.
I mean, listen, man. Next question. Bro.
Do you think we'll ever see it? Do you think the public will ever see it at this point? Because it seems like it's actually the groundswell has grown. And a year ago, I would have had my doubts.
I'm obviously indebted to Warner's and DC, and I don't know how they feel about it, but I mean,
right.
As a fan, I'm very, very happy that I got to see it.
Does it feel like a totally different movie than the Justice League that was released?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's hoping. Okay. I know you went into Warner Brothers recently and talked about.
Boom. Again, the Snyder Cut exists. He has seen it. He is on camera with MTV. He is saying, I've seen it. I have seen the Snyder Cut. Yeah, he has seen it. The biggest, that should already just solidify everything. And if Roxy Strier or any of these people who are still kind of wondering if this thing exists and things like that, it's kind of weird because on Collider, I thought she was for it too, but I don't know. But it's still, it's apparent here. We're probably gonna still saying the people, and I've already seen it. They're saying that Jason's lying or something. Jason's just saying this for Zack Snyder. Jason's just, and I'm like, are you kidding me right now? It probably will take it right in their face. We would have to buy the Blu-ray and mail it to these people in order for them to believe it. And maybe even then they'll think that this is some bootleg copy of Justice League. Oh my God. But anyway, I digress. He has said he's seen it. It exists. The score is complete. But the one thing that has kind of never really been acknowledged by not too many people, at least, beside the fact that Zack Snyder says it's done, and he implies that when he chose that picture of that billboard, that it says it's done, it exists, it's done, he has a cut. That's the one he wants to, hone in on in that message, right? But now, Jason Momoa is seemingly implying that the Snyder Cut is done. Because you heard it there when Joshua asked, it still has effects not done and stuff. Jason Momoa kind of looked at him and was like, oh, you think Zack Snyder couldn't finish it? You think he couldn't finish it? Which makes a great point. Zack Snyder, a man who has brilliance in visual effects, right? He's brilliant at it. He's got possibly friends in high places and things. Lots of money. I mean, look at his yacht, right? He has no company. Couldn't finish the movie on his own. Is that believable? Now, I know we've been conversing, we've done these things, and I get sometimes tired about how finished a cut is, because right at this point, and the message really is that the movie does exist, and please, Warner Brothers, please release that cut, right? But we have to kind of talk about that again, maybe just discuss it a little bit, okay? When he's saying that, couldn't Zack Snyder finished it? I thought about that for a second, and I just kind of remember the conversation I had with Sean O'Connell. He said it's been 2 years since that movie, and we've talked about this before. I'm pretty sure, even during the times when I had hair, we've talked about how it's possible. Why is it not possible, actually? Zack Snyder couldn't have finished it himself without Warner Brothers. Why couldn't he have financed it himself? And then you're thinking, well, why did he have to finance it himself? Couldn't he call in favors or had someone to do it for him in between contracts and things like that? Isn't that not possible? Don't you think that a man like Zack Snyder, possibly the nicest director, everybody loves working with him, wouldn't call in some favors, says, hey, can you help me out? Or they offer him, hey, can we help you finish these little bits and pieces in between our own projects or something? You don't think someone can do that? Because I've been involved in many art projects before. I've been involved in some productions before where they have zero money. And all we did was call in favors because of loyalty, because of friendship. Because you would do that for the sake of art. You hear the term starving artists. Starving artists doesn't mean they have a lot of money. They don't use money. They do whatever it takes to get their art out. And then maybe after they get money back. Right? So, if you think of it the way that I want to think of it, just guessing here, is that maybe these sources who are saying the Snyder Cut's not done, like Joshua Horowitz, who seems to have a possible source or something that says that the effects aren't done, it's not finished, or they're being fed that by Warner Brothers. It's because Warner Brothers had stopped the production of Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League. And you go back to Dave Dodger's little timeline here, when Snyder left in May. That's the level of completion that Warner Brothers has. That is the level of completion the studio knows about. That's the level of completion that is being reported. Possibly even the source, people from that area, their sources are saying that's all that's needed. It needs more money. It needs 20, 30, 40 million, whatever amount that means, right? It needs more work. Because that's the level of completeness that the Warner Brothers studio realized. But that's not the Snyder Cut we're talking about. That's not the Snyder Cut that's 214 minutes, that's done, that exists, that is complete. The one that Zack Snyder is trying to tell us it's done, the one that Jason Momoa is implying it's done, the one that's done, possibly done in 2 years later. That's the Snyder Cut we're talking about. The one that Warner Brothers doesn't have, but the one that Zack Snyder has. So the Snyder Cut that we want released is not the one in Warner Brothers' possession. It's the one in Zack Snyder's possession. Possibly the one that Jason Momoa got to see, was very grateful as a fan to have seen, and possibly sick. And of course, totally different from what we got in the theaters. It's a different movie. The one he's excited about. The one that we should all be excited about. The one that has Darkseid in it. Right? The one that has the Sod in it. The one that has Martian Manhunter in it. And loads more. The one that has a third act with an awesome Superman action scene that we have yet to see. That's the Snyder Cut that we're talking about. That's the Snyder Cut that we want Warner Brothers to approve to distribute. Okay? And you're wondering, okay, wait a minute, Chris. Wait a minute. If Zack Snyder had finished work, if he actually had finished effects and stuff like that, then why is he only posting black and white images of behind the scenes shots or things that don't look like it's fully finished? I have theory on that. Okay? Just as much as he cannot distribute his movie, couldn't that also mean he cannot release photos of his finished products, of his finished scenes? He can only release behind the scenes, BTS scenes, or scenes that he had made during his time at Warner Brothers. Okay. And call it BTS and kind of just say that these are behind the scenes shots. Just like David Ayer posting all these different images from his Suicide Squad. It's essentially BTS shots, right? Essentially during the time of production. Not saying that he had worked on anything afterwards. So let's say this. Zack Snyder finished it. He worked on everything. He has a finished scene of that dark side. He has that finished scene of Wonder Woman cutting off Steppenwolf's head. It's fully CGI'd. He has a finished scene of Ray Fisher looking at his parents within the background, and that's not a template background. Why does he show that? Well, that's the thing. I don't think he can. Just like he cannot reveal his movie. The rights are with Warner Brothers. Essentially what he's have done from the time he has left and to whatever amount of time in that 2 years to have possibly finished his movie the way he wanted to, either bring in favors or actually paying it for himself or actually doing some of it himself. Who knows at this point what type of level of loyalty, and I'm sure his friends are very loyal, as you see from Jason Momoa, and you see this stuff and you wonder, well, why can't he release that? Just like I said, he doesn't own. He made that himself. It's essentially a fan edit, right? And then he would have to get approval to distribute it. Now, you're wondering, well, that doesn't make sense because we've seen fan edits before. They're legally out there, altering of the movie, right? They're altered works of art, and a lot of these movies actually get taken down. And that's why we get things like these servers that we can put it on and we have to download it and then the link disappears and stuff like that because it's copyright. Right? It's copyright. Chris Dawson is doing it himself. I'm sure he has a few people helping him work on it. Like he called in a favor for the CGI Batmobile. He called in a favor doing this and that. But Chris Dawson is doing the Black Suit Edition himself. Now imagine if Chris Dawson was Zack Snyder with the amount of friends in high places, money, and all that. You don't think, if Chris Dawson is doing this for $0, right? Essentially zero. I don't know if he paid money in this, but he's essentially with no budget. You don't think someone like Zack Snyder would be able to complete the level of his own fan edit to Justice League, his own edit himself? That's what Jason Momoa is trying to say. Oh, you don't think Zack Snyder could finish it? Zack Snyder? You don't think Zack Snyder could finish it? And that's why I believe Zack Snyder does have a finished copy of the Snyder Cut of Justice League. He just cannot show anything because he was not supposed to really. He can work on it, but he cannot show anything to the public because he doesn't own it. He doesn't own its copyright, right? He can show it to friends and family, just like how all these fan edits can do it. He maybe even can leak it out on some obscure server and we can all download it or something, right? Maybe he can do that, but maybe he's just trying to do it through the proper channels. Maybe he finished it. Maybe he's negotiating with Warner Brothers to help him distribute it. Is it going to be called the Snyder Cut? Is it going to be called the Director's Cut of Justice League? Is it going to be called something else entirely? I don't know. So none of that, all that finished work was not even financed by Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers, all they have is that 70 or 80% completeness before Zack Snyder is done. Maybe they don't know that Zack Snyder has 100% done non-financed Warner Brothers movie in Zack Snyder's possession right now. And he can't show a single picture or scene from that because he cannot distribute that, just like he can't distribute his movie. And I think that is compelling. And damn lucky of Jason Momoa to have been possibly one of the most grateful fans who have actually seen the Snyder Cut. So I hope one day Warner Brothers decides to actually help release that cut, to help Zack Snyder distribute that movie that Zack Snyder had made, that possibly even worked on all these years, and it's ready to be released, ready to be shown to the world. And Jason Momoa is letting Warner Brothers, letting everyone know that the public should see it. So please, release the Snyder Cut of Justice League. Alright guys, well thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.